During the Cold War, Britain lived with the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. Beneath town halls, inside bunkers and connected by a secret web of wires, one codename stood ready to unleash the nation's final warning: Handle. Handle was the system for alerting the carrier control points, a covert network designed to trigger the air raid sirens that would warn of incoming attack. Today, we meet a collector of Cold War memorabilia, a man who's preserved the sirens, the receivers, and the chilling legacy of Britain's nuclear defence. And at the end of this film, we will do the unthinkable. We activate one of these Cold War sirens at full blast inside his home. This is the story of Handle, Britain's Cold War warning system.
A road trip.
How are we doing, folks? Right, we're in James's car now. And we're on the way to see Paul, who's got this extensive collection of Cold War memorabilia and sirens and stuff. We're actually see a siren fully going. Is it three-phase one, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got 3 phases at his house. He'll be able to power one up fully, hopefully running off the carrier control point, so you'll see the whole system working together.
Yeah.
There's also a Merlin engine in his garage, so that'll be a fun thing to see as well. That's a little sideshow, so should hopefully be plenty for you to see and film over there.
So let's check it out, folks. Indeed. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. Yeah. Let's have a look at your collection.
Okie dokie. Well, as I say, it's not displayed in any particular order. Everything is crammed in where I can get the things in. But yeah, I've got 2 main passions in life, which is the air raid sirens and the Merlin engine, which is stood next to you. So in terms of the sirens, I'd hate to say how many I've had over the years. I just buy them as I like them, sort of thing. This is a Sakermak GP8. So this, as far as I know, this has never actually been used. Sakermak and Castle Castings were sort of making Cold War sirens around the same time. Main difference is Castle Castings, they kind of had all the civil defence type stuff, whereas Sakermak and then latterly Klaxon tended to be they'd be used maybe chemical plants, evacuation sirens. I think Klaxon is still providing sirens for modern day flood warning. Nearly all of the sirens that I've had are what they call a dual tone siren, which is effectively you've got 2 tones going on. So you've got a musical note coming off this end, which is 10 holes and 10 blades, and then 12 holes and 12 blades on the other side. And that's pretty much been the same sort of design all the way from Second World War gent sirens. So I guess it's so the public recognise the tones. So they've all got 10 and 12 and they're all spinning at around about 2,800 RPM. So this siren has never been issued, I don't think, or used. It's a Sakermak GP8. Moving on to some of these others. This is a classic. We'll be hopefully firing this one up later, but this is probably something like a 1970s 80s Castle Castings siren. It's got the flared base on it. Some of the older ones here, this will be a 1950s Castle with a step square base. The difference between these two is these earlier Castles had a cast iron motor body, brass plate. Yeah, slightly more heavier weight design, rotors slightly heavier. These obviously have the heater plates on them to stop them getting frosted up. These were operated by thermostat. And then the more modern Castles got the cast iron, got the aluminium motor body. Down the bottom here, we've got a Carter siren. So Carter, they were kind of competing for the Home Office contract in the Second World War with Gents. Gents really stole the show with their 4 horsepower siren, but I think the Carter, in my opinion, is actually quite a robust siren. So Carter were based in a town called Nelson in Lancashire, and I believe they formed the roots of Castle Castings, who were Clitheroe in Lancashire. So I think that was a natural progression. Down there, snuck in there. We'll look at it later. We've got a Gents of Leicester siren, so that's a 4 horsepower siren down there. So yeah, and I've got other sirens in nooks and crannies secreted round.
That's mad. I've never seen so many sirens.
Yeah. But this is the Merlin engine, if you want to see that at the same time. So are you interested in knowing about Mabel the Merlin?
Yeah.
So Mabel the Merlin is a 1945 Packard manufactured Merlin. So it's one of the third of all Merlins that was manufactured in Detroit in the United States. To obviously Rolls-Royce designs. This was a late war engine. One of the more powerful Merlins. It's got a 2-stage 2-speed supercharger, so that's about 1700 horsepower. A Bendix Stromberg injection carburetor, which means it has diaphragms and not the floats. Everyone talks, when they come and see the engine, they talk about the aspect of negative G and all of that. Well, these carburetors didn't suffer from that. So yeah, it's got a cut down prop, so we run it with a prop. The prop came off is something like XDC3. Radiator is X Shackleton, so Avro Shackleton. Again, it just fits in nicely for what we want to do. It's a fully stainless steel trailer. You've got the fuel in one side, and the other side you've got the oil, because it's a dry sump engine. 27 litres. We run her about 2,000 RPM, so max revs is about 3,000 RPM. So twin magnetos. One this side does the spark plugs on the outside of the V, and the mag on the other side does the spark plugs on the inside of the V. So they're each doing, so you've got 12 spark plugs on the outside and 12 spark plugs on the inside, and that's for sort of redundancy purposes there. So yeah, not looking very clean at the moment, but
It's lovely.
Have you got your Geiger counter for the dials?
Oh, somewhere, yeah. I could get that out later. But
Yeah.
yeah, the dials on here are nicely. They fizz away quite nicely, especially this one.
radium.
Yeah, radium dials. Yeah, so the radium's has burnt out the phosphorus a long time ago, so they don't glow anymore. But the radium's still there for another 1600 years half life. I think it is something like that. So yeah. Go and see some other bits.
There is a siren in being worked on here, so we've got a Gents that's actually open.
Yeah, that's a Gent siren. This one here is pretty poor condition. Literally, I'm stripping it down at the moment. As you can see, most of it is actually empty space on the Gent. So this is obviously this is the 3-phase winding inside. 3-phase induction motors, great. You know, they're super reliable, and this one was seized up, not in the motor but in the rotors, which is where they like to seize up. But I suspect, had it not been seized in the rotors and you put some 3-phase power to it, it probably would have kicked into life. The only thing they suffer from is the insulation breaks down between the windings, and you can get well, I mean, the worst case, you get the case could potentially go live, which of course is not what you want. And you know, over the years they would eventually sort of pack up and you know, short, but they're pretty robust things.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, so what's special about these, and this panel here and that panel there over there is fairly similar, but these these are pretty rare actually. These are certainly, in my experience, much rarer than so the Air 8 siren control panels in general are probably rarer than the sirens, because they just get stripped out and trashed. But within the sort of group of Air 8 siren control panels, these ones in particular are very rare. So these are definitely World War II era Gents of Leicester control panels. So or this item here. So this is the auto whaler. So on the later panels, like we've got down here, we've got the auto whaler incorporated into the test switch. So we've got the timing device actually in there, the 4 second off, with this here, we've got the operating switches here, but inside it literally is just contacts. So there's no timing device in there at all. So what they did, it was they incorporated this separate module here, which I've got on my YouTube channel actually. But this is the AutoWhaler device here, and inside here is a cam operating a mercury tilt switch. So as the cam spins, the mercury tilts backwards and forwards every 4 seconds, and these two items in conjunction operate the three-phase contactor which is in here. So this is quite a rare setup, this one here. So yeah, so that's your three-phase gents control panel.
And this one here is the same, is it?
Yeah, that one's the same. Yeah, so just slightly different switch gear.
Wow. That's lovely.
So this is my version of the effectively the training panel that BT put together for the WB 1400 training module.
Right.
So this though I think it's a little bit more than the BT equipment for a couple of reasons. So we have power, that's good. So the original BT training unit did include the carrier control point. It included the WB 1400 speaker, but this is kind of the non-ruggedized speaker. So this would have been in hospitals, fire stations, other civil defence points, warning points. It also, the original unit would have included the receiver signalling as well, so we could go through the siren activation. Well, what it wouldn't have included is the ruggedized speaker here. So this is the speaker unit that I'm sure you guys have seen in the ROC post, this kind of stuff. And the reason I wanted to include both in here was because there is a select switch on the carrier control point that will either operate one or both, and I wanted to be able to show those. Plus, I've collected the items as well. So, so the carrier control points themselves, again, pretty rare pieces of equipment. There was 250 police stations in the country which had carrier control points, and they would have had two each. So they've had one in operations, one room, and then one in a basement or maybe a slightly hardened area. What else can I say about those? Oh, and the reason there was 250, I've got a document that shows that the 250 police stations were effectively, it was telephone exchange regions in the UK. So there's 250 telephone exchange regions, and each one of those had a police station that had one of these. And the way that it would be worked is within the telephone exchange there would be a WB 1400 equipment rack. So this would be linked to the equipment rack, and then from the exchange all the warning points and all the sirens would be connected back to this piece of equipment here. So so the whole WB 1400 system, or handle system as it's known, a really good website called Ringbell explains everything in a lot more detail. These here were activated by two places in the country, one being RAF Wickham Strike Command, the other place being the headquarters of the UK Warning and Monitoring Organisation, which I think was at Preston, and they each had a console that would broadcast down what they call X and Y path, which were the two speaking clock circuits which ran around the country, and they would activate the carrier control points. There was no direct link from the WB 1800 at Strike Command or Preston to be able to activate the sirens. Again, don't really understand why, but it did rely on the 4-minute warning being received by these, and then someone taking manual action at each of those 250 police stations to broadcast to the speakers and the sirens which were on, linked to this exchange. So the first thing we can see is this ticks away 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, and this broadcasts what they call a confidence click signal, and you can hear that on these speakers here by, if we test that, you will hear that going like that. So that's that, and there was a volume control on that, and on this one here, same thing here. So you would know that you were connected to the system, and once a month or whatever there was a training exercise where the police would broadcast out to everyone who had a speaker. You'd have to write down the word that you heard and send that back, just so they could constantly confirm that the system was operational and that everyone was playing their part. I think also there was a similar test that came from the WB 1800 to all the carrier control points. Don't quote me on that, but again, Ringbell will tell you what's going on with that one. So what have we got? What I can show you on here is how the actual alert would have sounded coming from Strike Command or Preston for the 4-minute warning, we call it a 4-minute warning, out to the carrier control points. And this piece of equipment here is non-original. It was made by a guy called Mike Scott, a really good guy up in Scotland, and he's a genius with this stuff. And what he did here was this is kind of a demonstrator unit which broadcasts certain tones and signals to be able to activate this, and I can show you what that would look like. So just make sure it's switched on. So if you saw that activating, you'd know that you were in trouble. So these will continue to flash until one or either of those is picked up, and they were usually used, I believe, in tandem. And the reason for that is because if one path failed, then you've got other paths, and so you would actually listen and speak in tandem. In peacetime, if you pick these up, you would actually hear the speaking clock ticking. So the policeman said that they used to sort of set their watches by that. So having received the signal in, and listened to what the WB 1800 message would have said, obviously the police would have had to act accordingly. And the first thing they would do, and I'll show you this here. So if they wanted to broadcast a message out to just the ruggedized speakers, they'd leave it on select, and they could make a routine call to the RSC post like this, and that was sound that speaker, and then they would pick those up and speak down the speakers you can hear there. So that would be just a peacetime call or a communication. If they wanted to speak to both sets of speakers, they would flick it to all, and they could do the same thing here. And you can hear that in a kind of stereo type fashion. So again, that would cancel that. So that's just the standard call. When it comes to sort of wartime warnings, and again they wanted to broadcast to everyone who had these speakers, they would activate this. We'll wait for that to die down a sec, but anyway, we'll do it there. The typical signal then would be attack warning red, attack warning red, attack warning red. So again, we'll cancel that sequence. Now at this point, these speech receivers, what they're doing is they're listening for a tone to come from the carrier control point before activating the speaker circuit. And once activated, it will stay on a while, and shortly you will hear those pips disappear. In a sec. There we go, it's disappeared again. So having done that, if you wanted then to activate the sirens, you'd switch the sirens on. What I'll show you for the training unit, we've got the ability to just to have just the signal lamp working. And again, this now is priming the WB 1400 receiver signalling. And that will be the 4 second for the siren coming on and off again. So if you wanted to use a training unit without wrecking your ears, you did that. But what we've also got the ability on this training unit here, the original ones did have what I called an internal siren, but it was just like a little gents proprietary siren. What a guy called Matthew Scanlon, who is on YouTube as Flamethrower Guy, has been making these little 3D printed sirens, and I asked him to make me a gents version. He's done an excellent job here, and hopefully we'll get to hear that going now. And the great thing about this is you actually get like a very lifelike but low volume warning. Now, the warning sequences for the attack warning, which again is normally 4 seconds 4 off, lasts for 60 seconds. So you can also sound an all clear as well. Which obviously is a constant tone. And again, that will last for 60 seconds. The unit also had the ability to sound flood warning sirens, and here's the flood warning switch here. Now actually the flood warning sirens used a different type of receiver signalling, worked on a different tone system, but we can get an idea of it. And that would be operating a flood warning siren. Again, the reason this siren has not been operated is that it needs a different system. So that's about it. There is a group call facility on here as well. So you could talk to all the group, and I think these were the Cuomo warning centres could use those, and you could actually use that as well to call back from the CCP. So that's about it really in terms of the carrier control point. There's a lot more information to say on Ring Bell, but hopefully we'll try and get a 3-phase siren fired up from it now. This is effectively, as far as I know, this is the last version they made of the kind of street cabinet contactor box. Let's try and pull this out a bit. So this succeeded or superseded the sort of GE siren switch panel #1, and effectively it's just a miniaturization of everything that was in there. If I can open that, I can show that. So again, a lot of it is space really in here, but effectively what you've got is a 3-phase contactor there. So what's going to happen is we're going to plug the NIFAM lead from the receiver signalling into the NIFAM socket here, and what that's going to do is when the carrier control point sends the siren activation signal here, it will allow 240 volts from here into the NIFAM, which will operate the 240 volt 3-phase contactor here. So it's 240 volts to operate the solenoid on there. We'll hear that click in, and that will let 3-phase juice along to the onto the siren, and obviously would have just been connected in the street cabinet. So we'll have a go at doing that now.
Wow.
All right, so we'll lock that back up, and this is the bit that until this morning I have used this box for various things, but I've not actually used it in this capacity. So first of all we need to get this
in the right way round.
Yeah, there is only one way around you can do this, because one of the pins is. So hopefully now, yes, we've got three-phase power. So this is three-phase power to this unit with the knife amp in it. You should. So this would just be the siren heater control. We'll leave that off for now. There was an ability to. There you go. That's the three-phase contact you can hear kicking in. So that was a test button there, or you could leave the siren on fully, but we're going to leave that in the off. That's just for testing the siren. So now what we should get, if it works first time, that'll be good. We should now get the carrier control point, activating the receiver signaling, allowing 240 volts into here, which should cycle the three-phase contactor. So we'll have a go at doing that. You can hear the three-phase contactor thumping in now.
Wow.
So that will be allowing three-phase juice to here. And again, that will cycle that for 60 seconds. Okay. We'll cancel that. Right. Now we're going to get the big toy. Hope you're feeling strong, you guys. Yeah. Right. So so this is a sort of 1980s castle, and it's actually been put together incorrectly, and it was based on some information that I had passed to me at the time, which was incorrect. So the interesting thing about these is on these later ones, they have a nut and a locking nut system on each end, and one end is a left-hand thread and one end's a right-hand thread, and that is simply because, in theory, although I've never known these nuts move anywhere at all, but if they did want to come undone, as long as the motor is spinning in the correct direction, they'd actually be being forced to tighten every time. So and the motor should spin, in order for those nuts to work, the motor should spin in that direction. And I know that because this is a restored siren, which didn't have any markings on it before I restored, but I've had plenty of these sirens that had the arrow marking on them showing the direction of rotation, which is that way. And if the motor's spinning that way, then it's doing the nuts up. The thing is, these siren fins or vanes, to make the correct sound, should hit the air flat on. So if this was turning the right way to hit the air, it'd actually be turning that way and squeezing the air out, whereas the motor direction is that way. So what I'm trying to say on this one here is the blades are on the wrong end, so the stator on this one and the blade should be on the other end. So that was a learning experience for me. One day I'll swap them around again. So next thing we've got to do, in here we can see the motor connections. So these are basically the 3 winding circuits, and what we're going to do is we're going to put one live phase onto each of these circuits. So we'll do that now. The early Carter sirens and the early Sakermac sirens had motors on them that were made by Brook Motors of Huddersfield. They later became Brook Crompton, and even after that, I think we've got one here, Brook Crompton and Parkinson Motors, part of the, I think it's the Hawker Siddeley group or Siddeley group. So all kinds of things have gone on with these motors over the years. But anyway. So yeah, I'm afraid my setup isn't as neat as James's, but one day I'll have it all together.
Windy.
Yeah. I don't know how much you know about 3-phase motors, but if you wire up a 3-phase motor and it spins in the wrong direction, there is obviously a convention of doing this. But when I'm doing it, it's more trial and error. But if it spins in the wrong direction, if you swap any 2 phases over, it will reverse the direction spin. That's the same. Only 3-phase motor. Fiddly little buggers.
Tiny, isn't it? I think the 3-phase would be a lot thicker than that.
Well, these motors are actually, although yes, they're a bit more than your average Black and Decker. 3-phase equipment. The output sockets are all different sizes, and these ones here work off the smallest size, which is a 16 amp. So these are, as I say, that's a earth pin, and then you've got 3 lives and a neutral. For the purposes of what we're doing here, we don't need the neutral, we just need the 3 lives and the earth if you can't be bothered. But I don't normally bother with that because I'm not going to be anywhere near it when I touch it. So anyway, yeah, and then after that they go up 32 amp, 60 odd amp, and then they get some real whoppers.
Right. Oh yeah, that should be fine.
We'll do a quick test.
Want to do a lip?
Yeah, just a bit. Should be able to do that actually on this switch here, shouldn't I?
Yeah, to see what direction she's spinning.
9 inches, well. So on this one here we can see at the moment the motor is actually spinning in the correct direction for the nuts and bolts, but in terms of generating sound it's going in the wrong directions. So I'm going to turn it round. James,
Yeah.
can you unplug it for me please, mate? I'm just going to swap phases round.
Yeah, okay.
Let me know when.
You're clear.
Okay. Okay. Right. I tested this siren in here, and it was stood against that door over there, and there was a high-vis jacket on it, and it's all happened in slow motion. There was nothing I could do about it. I just finished restoring the siren, and I set the siren off, and it billowed a load of air up and lifted this high-vis jacket off the hook, and then as I cut the power, it just floated down. Came down slow motion, then just caught. You wouldn't think you get a high-vis jacket through that gap there, but I did, and that's what the score is there. So.
Are you going to do a blip or a run?
No, I'm just going to do a quick blip on my. I'll get you to perhaps record it for me on my phone, and then because I've not done this, I've not used that cabinet to set that off yet, so I'd like to put something on my channel.
Well, you might be able to stand in here and film it in here.
Yeah, I might do actually. Then, yeah.
Yeah, because then you've got it from volunteering, you know.
Right, okay. You staying with me, Chris? Or?
I can do, and I'm going to get my independence back, because that's going to be louder in there. I know that.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Was that worth coming over for?
Yeah. Yeah, that was nice, that. Yeah.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm just surprised the amount of wind that comes off.
Yeah, it's quite. I was like, how is it going to stop? You know, kept getting. Yeah. You feel it, like you say, that you feel it in the chest.
Okay, so yeah, this is quite an interesting piece of kit. Actually, this is a WB 14038 Mark III test equipment, and what this was used for was used by the BT engineers, and this basically tests that the siren receiver signalling is working without actually having to operate the siren. So what you do is this piece of equipment here is normally plugged into the street cabinet, or in my test unit plugged into the visual system, and so what we've done is we've inserted the test equipment in between into the system here. So what we can immediately see here is that we've got mains present to the receiver signalling, so that's the first thing, and then we're going to cycle the carrier control point, and what you should see is this light up here, the contactor supply light, which would show that the receiver signalling is letting power through to the contactor without actually setting off the siren. So we can indicate that here. And there we go. So you can just hear faintly the contactor clicking in the receiver signalling. And obviously we note that the siren light isn't coming on, which means that this here is effectively being able to test the contactor without having to set the siren system going.
I love the calibrated 1990 on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a switch to mains off again. So yeah, so yeah, that's just an interesting piece of.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
So that saves setting the siren off every
Yeah,
time you
I
test it,
think
guess.
there were some units which you could do both, because what they found is, and this was the problem with the siren network in general. So so for example, you might put this unit in it and see that it's all activating, but that only tests the receiver signalling. You know, downstream of that, you've got the 3-phase contactor panel, which is not being tested at all by this. It's just saying that it's allowing power to it. So the contactor could be seized, it could be disconnected, there could be problems with the 3-phase wiring. So you wouldn't be able to test any of that. So what they then did is, I believe one of these units had the ability to actually let power through to the contactor, and actually you get what they call a ground test. So they would, operate the siren very briefly and see that it was rotating. Even then, that has its limitations, because the siren's sort of growling over like that. It doesn't test to see whether there's any problems with the rotor. These sirens, there are written articles and investigations where the siren has actually exploded. Certainly the old gent sirens that are cast iron and get cracks in the stators. I've seen bits falling out of them, cracks in the rotors if they're not handled correctly, and that was a problem that you could just do limited testing if it was ever you needed at a time of war.
Then you find out they don't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was only so much you could do with them. So anyway, so there we go. That's kind of probably the extent of what I can meaningfully show you today.
Yeah,
But
it's brilliant. Yeah.
it's probably a lot more than you see in anybody else's house. So these are the GRP covers that protect the siren, and means you don't have to have heater plates. So this centre section here literally covered the motor, and onto part of these covers. These sections here, obviously there's 2 pairs here, but effectively one of these went over the top of each of the rotors. So the rotors would be the motors here,
Yeah.
the rotors here, then you've got this area here free then, and then on the bottom section you would have had these. So these would be the bottom half of the section with all the louvres in there, and that would have been the louvres on the end.
That's a good idea, really, isn't it? So what date are these dated?
Again, I think they're probably 80s,
Yeah.
and not all authorities use them, but actually Thanet did have a few in covers. And if you look up the photos of the siren that was on Crow Hill and Broadstairs on the top of the substation, that had a set of these covers on. This is pretty rare. So this is the GZI in its original container. So again,
Zero indicator.
yeah. So this is completely unissued. Reminds me of one of those sort of big cheddar cheeses you can get.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, so this is an unissued GZI. That there looks like a bit of paint missing, but it's not actually. That signifies north.
Oh wow.
So what that's obviously someone's rushing up from a RAC post to change this, and it gives them handy reference. So yeah, that means north. They've also got a little locating slot there which fits in this tab here, so when they're up and about they can quickly change that. Obviously all these have got the cardinal points on them as well, plus these as well, say north on, so there's one each of those, and each one of these little spigots here is in a slightly different position. You can see that's offset. So there's quite a lot of detail in these actually.
Yeah, you can't put it together wrong, basically.
No, so that should slide down and flat over there.
So it seems to be a lot heavier than they sort of seem to be. You know, it's
Yeah,
you look
well,
at them, you don't
well
think,
on this one here actually, a lot of the weight, because this includes this item here, was the bit that would be concreted in the
yeah.
on top of the post, which I know you'll have seen. Again, the other thing is these holes here are set in a certain way, so again this will only drop onto that. Yeah, now these would either be concreted in, or some of the buildings these would be bolted to a bracket.
Wow.
So
It's nice, isn't it?
yeah, pretty rare thing, that one.
And just as good as the day it was made. Yeah.
This one is, yeah. You know, guy was telling me they had loads of these and they just scrapped them. So that's a DPI. Now that was issued because it's been upgraded to kilopascals there, and you can see if I take obviously the BPI tube would have gone in the top, and
Oh yes, yep.
and then you'd reset it by pressing that. So,
What's that say on the bottom of it?
what, right there?
Underneath, right underneath.
Oh, that's
Oh, 1974.
yeah, that's something to do with the post, I think, that it was in. There you go.
Lovely, isn't it?
Right then, folks, we're back in Dover.
Sunny Dover.
It seems, yes.
Yeah, not so sunny now.
It's raining hard. Wind's got up. Like the storm's come back. I'll say thanks very much to James for showing in these bits at the beginning of the video, and to Paul, where we just come from. Absolutely amazing to see all that Cold War gear, sirens and stuff. Amazing stuff. So thanks very much for watching, folks. Check out, you've got some bits.
Yeah, we've got Heritage War Sirens, our channel, and we've got Paul's Attic Boy 11. So
Boy 11,
plenty of
thanks,
videos on those to catch up on as well. So.
Description, folks. Check it out. All will be revealed down there. So.
And you've got any Cold War gear laying around, let them know.
Oh yeah, that's it. Indeed. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thanks.